Should you buy the brand new Fender Vintera II Road Worn 60s Telecaster? Stick with me because I'll tell you. Hey, it's John from Play & Trade Guitars, and I've got a full demo today including bench specs and a performance. Following that, I'll give you my raw, honest reaction to playing this guitar so you can decide if it's right for you. And I'll tell you what, the Vintera II line from Fender was already one of my favorite lines that they make before they went and added this road worn finish. So it's a little bit more expensive at $15.99, but it packs some high-end features and a really beautifully done worn finish, including finish checking on a real nitrocellulose finish, and even the maple fretboard looks just well played and worn like you'd see on a vintage guitar. If I saw this hanging on a guitar store wall, I would be tricked into thinking that this was a vintage blonde Telly with that true honest wear, and I think they did a really nice job. So I'll break it down with bench specs. Of course, I'll plug this guitar in and play it. But at the top, if you're in the market for this guitar or any other gear, click to buy new gear using my link. You'll find it pinned below, or you can scan this QR code if you're watching on a TV. When you use my link, you get fast free shipping, easy payment plans, and these are no interest payment plans that makes buying new gear super easy, so check that out. And it's a win-win because you help me make these videos when you buy gear using my link. Now, the Vintera II Road Worn finish. These are made in Mexico, nitrocellulose finish. This neck is a medium C 60s profile, 1.65 inches at the nut, 0.83 inches at the first, up to 0.96 inches at the 12th. And it's got vintage tall frets and a 7¼ inch radius, so a more pronounced hump on the actual neck itself. We have these 60s Vintera II single coil pickups, pull the white pickguard single ply. And then the bridge, I mean, even the wear pattern, they've got like some rust in the fender, which is really cool. And it just looks nice and broken in. Now these pickups are going to read 6.0 in bridge, 7.1 in neck, 3.3 combined. Controls and a little bit of wear pattern on the plate itself. So it just looks like it's been played. Quite a bit of lead wire going on in here. Fender CTS 250K pots, all standard there. And I tell you what, the attention to detail, the finish checking that has been done not only on the neck, the worn in playable surface that looks like a vintage guitar on the maple, and everything just looks like a well-worn, well-loved, and well-played Telly. I just love it. I've also got a couple comparable guitars to show you from the regular Vintera II line quick that I think are great guitars. And despite this being a limited edition and more expensive, the Vintera II line should not be forgotten because those are wonderful guitars. Let's take a quick look at those before we plug in, and then we'll get to it. All right, so here we are with the blonde finish, which has the maple fretboard at $15.99. It's also available in the same series in this burgundy finish, which just looks fantastic. And look at that finish checking there. This will have the rosewood board, which is very cool, and just nice details. Look at these steel saddles with the notches, and there you can kind of see that rusted Fender logo I was talking about. And it's just very skillfully and tastefully done in terms of the road worn finish. Now in the regular Vintera II series, you have the 50s no-caster, if you want a Telecaster style guitar. This, I will tell you though, has a much thicker neck, so just be aware of that, and it will be a poly finish without the road wear on there. And then here's just a bestseller. Here's the 60s Telly in the Vintera II line, 1209, Fiesta Red or Sonic Blue. And this guitar just sounds fantastic. You can watch my review on the Vintera II line. I have demos for all these guitars. Beautiful rosewood board. And these guitars in this line will be vintage inspired. So I mean, you've got a vintage truss rod at the heel. You've got a 7¼ inch radius. You've got these slot tuners. You've got the works that say vintage. So if you're after a modern player, Vintera II would not be it. But Vintera II is one of my absolute favorite lines. You can watch my video where I compare it to the high-end American Vintage 2 series, American made, and even Classic Vibe. You could decide for yourself where it sits. But price-wise, it's in the middle of Fender's price range. So, very great series. Now let's plug it in and see how it sounds. I'll see you on the other side for my raw, honest review. And as I play, drop a comment. Let me know what you think of the sounds. I'll give you some direct playing before you hear it in context in the mix with a full performance. And I'll remind you one more time to hit subscribe if you haven't, so you don't miss any of the reviews in the channel. I've got more demos coming for the limited edition Road Worn series. Let's get plugged in and have some fun. All right, you stuck with me to the end. What did you think? It was a lot of fun playing this guitar. The pickups are spot on. I'm always so impressed by how this guitar sounds. The way I break a guitar down is three main categories: overall playability, overall sound, and overall value. So let's talk playability, pros and cons. Because this is a vintage inspired guitar, I'll start with some of the cons of having a vintage style Tele. Things like adjustability. The truss rod is not very accessible like a modern Tele. You'll have to take the neck off or take some serious slack off to adjust the truss rod. I did give it a quarter tighten from the factory. Just seasonally, things are starting to change here in the Midwest, so it's always good to know how to adjust your guitars. The other thing from a playability standpoint is that the nitrocellulose finish with the Road Worn thing going on, it does have kind of a distinct stick to it. You can feel it. In fact, even when I rub my thumb down, I can kind of almost like, if I could show that to you, there's almost like some nitro grain coming off. It looks like almost if you had eraser shavings, you know? Because I think what they did is they put the nitrocellulose finish on here, it cures, and then they kind of buff out the wear patterns on the neck. But I did notice a bit of a stick. The last thing I'll say in terms of cons would be the 7¼ inch radius. It's very overhyped that you can't bend, because as you heard, I was able to bend really no problem. But things like these things I'm mentioning combined do detract a little bit from the playability of this guitar compared to a modern style Tele, so just be aware of that. Overall playability, I'm gonna give this guitar an 8.5. Now, let's talk sounds. This is where this guitar stands out. It sounds exactly like a vintage Tele is supposed to sound. I love the percussive sound you get out of middle position, which is a fantastic Tele-only sound, which I adore. And of course, you can really let it rip when you go in bridge and get that sweet, soulful neck as well. Sounded fantastic to my ears. I'm gonna give it a 9.4 on overall sound. And then overall value. It is, without a doubt, these are made in Mexico. It is more expensive. It does include a hard shell case, which is a nice add. It does have the nitrocellulose finish and the Road Worn thing going on, along with the fact that it's a limited edition. And I really do believe that these will be very popular, as they already are. They're already selling out very quickly. But it is more expensive, and options in the same price range, you could look at something for a little bit more like American Professional 2, particularly if you want a more modern playing guitar. If you want a really affordable vintage style guitar like a Tele for 500 bucks, you can check out something like the Squier Classic Vibe. But this is not going to be the cheapest Fender out there in terms of, you know, it's made in Mexico. But for the features, it is really going to fit an aesthetic that really fools me into thinking that it's either a custom shop guitar or a true vintage guitar when it's hanging on the wall. I mean, it's crazy, and it was really well done. I think it looks fantastic. It sounds fantastic. So are you gonna pay a little bit more than Vintera II, the regular series? Yeah, but you know what? If it calls to you, I'm telling you, it sounds good enough, then go for it. If you don't wanna spend that extra money, the Vintera II regular line is excellent, and it's not going anywhere. So if I had to give a score on value for this guitar, I do like you're getting the Road Worn nitrocellulose finish. Detracts a little bit, maybe that it's not American made. It does have a hard shell case. Let's go ahead and give it an 8.8 on overall value. That's gonna bring us to a final score for the Vintera II Road Worn guitar of 8.9, a solid high B, so to speak. And I really dig it. It's more expensive, but it's got the tones that really, really make me love this guitar. And you just gotta like that vintage feel, especially with the specs, the little bit more stick of the nitro you might notice. But other than that, very cool guitar. Let me know what you think. And if you're buying any gear, shop gear using my link because you help me make these videos. And it's a win-win, like I said. You get fast free shipping and easy payment plans. Hit subscribe now if you haven't. Join this community. I'm glad you're here. I'll talk to you in the comments. Check out more demos on the channel, including more from this limited edition Road Worn series. It's John here from Plain Trade Guitars. Thanks for hanging out and keep playing.